Hi, I'm Steve Sapato, and you're listening to the Speaker Talks podcast for speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders who really want to grow their business and learn techniques, learn what they need to do. And today I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Laura Bastian, and she's been in the virtual assistant area for over 20 years. Now, I didn't know they had virtual assistants 20 years ago. Did they have the internet 20 years ago? I don't know. But today, you want to grow your business? Here's what most of us suffer from, isn't it? Is I don't have time. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And yet we're all too cheap to hire somebody, right? Because I mean, I worked with somebody last year at $33 an hour. How much can you have them do? So that's one of your challenges is where do you find good help? And today, Laura Bastian is going to help us find that. So Laura, are you there?
I am. So thank you for having me, Steve. I really appreciate you having me on this presentation today. I have been in the virtual assistant industry for 20 years. And yes, it has been around. When I first started my business, most people had no clue what it was.
No,
And obviously,
I
a lot
still
of
don't
business
really.
owners don't know. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I've had the privilege to help so many coaches, consultants, speakers on the back end actually launch 6 and 7 figure launch strategies. And so what's happened over the last 20 years is my clients have always asked, how can I get more Lauras? So about a year and a half, yeah, about a year and a half ago, I was actually diagnosed with cancer, and that was my
Oh,
wake up call. And I knew that I needed to get my skills out there in the world because there's systems that I put together that, yes, they're duplicatable, but people need to know about those systems other than me. So what I did is after raising my business, I built the virtual assistant business for 20 years. My babies are actually running my business mostly for the virtual assistant side of it now. My 2 daughters work with me and my niece as well. But I founded a company called Virtual Assistant and S'mores. And s'mores is because you want more of
no, that's
it.
your website, Virtual Assistant and S'mores.
Yep,
You're going to have to
Virtual
spell that
Assistant and
for me.
S'mores.
Virtual
Okay,
Assistant,
so
we
it's
get.
Virtual Assistant and then S'more, SMORE.com.
Okay,
And
no
basically what
apostrophe,
it
none of
is,
that kind of stuff.
no,
Just Virtual Assistant,
not in
more.
website domains.
Yeah, virtualassistantsmore.com.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a complicated one there.
Oh, no, that's good.
But yes, so over the years of working with clients and building my business and building this program out, I realized a couple things. Many people have been disappointed by the virtual assistants. At some point, they're even scared to hire them again, whether that's because of cost or because somebody's just disappointed them and not done what they really wanted them to do. Um, but
I
here's
think
the
we can.
deal.
I think most of us who've tried we can relate to that. Either somebody scared us away because to me it's like way back when I was a real estate appraiser for 20 years, and my brother-in-law or people said, Steve, you ought to buy a rental property. And my brother-in-law and sister had a rental property, and they talked about all the problems they had. So it scared me away. I was like, I'm not going to buy a rental property. It took me 10 more years before I finally did
Exactly.
it. Same with online assistants, virtual assistants. You hear so many horror stories, and you also, it's like, boy, I don't know that I can afford it, because again, like I said, I used one last year for a couple, 3 months for $33. And when I would say, this is exactly what I want. And one of my sabotage coach said, did you follow up to see if that's what they gave you? I went, well, no, I just trusted that they did that. And of course, then they didn't do that. So, 3 months later, I'm like, oh, I wonder where that's at. So I, call her up and say, hey, where's this? And she went, I didn't know that's what you wanted. I went, that's exactly, look at
Yeah.
the email, right? And so, yeah, we have that problem. So go ahead and fill us in on the details.
Well, and that it's a huge problem. But what most entrepreneurs don't realize, there's a couple different things. Is first of all, not all virtual assistants have the same skill set. Are you looking for a virtual assistant that's going to just do customer client care? Or are you looking for a virtual assistant that's going to update your website, send out blog posts, help you with your sales funnels? They
Good
all
question.
have different skill sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really have to know what you want before you even go in and hire. And then there's something that people don't necessarily realize, and to me, it's a little bit deeper than skill set. And it's how you communicate with your virtual assistant, how your virtual assistant is going to communicate with you, and some personality traits, because in order to have an effective relationship, you got to get along with the person, right? Just
Absolutely.
like with your spouse, you have to be able to communicate with them. So it's really important that you put those two factors together, the skills you need, the communication, and the personality traits. Does that make sense?
Of course. But how do you do
So,
that, right? I mean, don't you just call somebody up and say, "Hey, you want to be my virtual assistant? Let's go." Or
well, that's why I started another company to kind of fill in that void there. And I started a virtual assistant matchmaking service. So I help coaches, consultants, course creators, speakers, podcasters find their perfect virtual assistant. Um, and being the CEO of any company, there's three skills that you have to be able to master. One is you got to make decisions fast. Two is you have to delegate. And three is you have to innovate. So, as a solopreneur, and I'm guilty of it myself, and you are, I can tell, we try to do so much on our own, but we can't do it all on our own. It's
but we
not
think
possible.
we can. We think we can, right? I mean, that isn't that
We
proper.
think we
When we
can,
talk about
but
entrepreneurs,
what's
one
going
of
to
the thing
happen is
is,
you're going to.
but that's it. One of the things that most entrepreneurs struggle with is, I already think I know that, because if, like you say, hire a coach. You guys need to hire a coach to get this done, and they go, "No, I already know how to do that." Well, if you knew that, you'd probably already be making 2 times as much as you're making now, right? Same with this. I can do that. I just got to figure out how, and then they find they're spending way too much time, and that's where you come in again, right, Laura?
Exactly. So, as a solopreneur, we think we can do it all on our own, but the fact is you're going to cap off at a certain point because there's only so many hours you have in the day and only so much energy, and something is going to suffer. It's either going to be your health, your relationships, your clients, your business. I mean, something is going to suffer if you're trying to do it all. And the worst part, is taking you longer to reach your long-term goals, plain and simple. So, what I have found is most entrepreneurs don't delegate early enough actually in their business. And there's many reasons that they don't. And I think we kind of talked about, some of these reasons, but, some people, your business is your baby. I get that. You don't want to lose control of your business, or you don't want to show that you can do, you want to be able to show that you can do anything that you would ask a team member to do. So lots of times that will hold people back from hiring somebody early enough in their business. Or maybe they need a coach because they're just not secure and comfortable in doing something, like hiring. They believe that it can be done quicker themselves. Guilty,
Oh,
guilty, guilty.
yeah.
I
Yeah, because I always say, as long
always
as it'll
believe
take
I
me
can
to
do it. That's
explain it.
myself.
Yeah. If I always say, if it's going to take me that long to explain it to them, I might as well do it myself. But then we're not looking at the long term, right? So this time it might take
Exactly.
me so long this time, but the next time I go, this is what I need you to do again. And they're like, "Oh, I know how to do that."
Exactly. And sometimes you just have no choice but to do things yourself because you don't have enough people on your team. That's where I can come in. Or maybe you can't afford to pay someone else to do something that you could actually do. And I understand that, but you really got to start by identifying what's preventing you from delegating first. So basically, what I tell people to do is to delegate effectively. You have to free up some capacity. So take a pencil and paper out and write down, what am I doing that needs not to be done at all? What task, do I engage in? And my camera just
Oop,
flipped, and I apologize,
we just
guys.
looked at your microphone. We saw her microphone. Oh, we saw her microphone.
Oh no, you see my Yeti. My office has turned into a schoolroom this year,
Oh,
COVID. So,
yeah, it's crazy.
the goal, yeah, the goal is really being able to focus on what you are good at and what you love, and that's your money maker. And then give all those others out to virtual assistants, out to
You
other
know,
team
yeah.
members.
And the
You know,
thing about that is that, I've got my sabotage coach, and he keeps, he says, "Steve, you need to hire that done." And I go, "I know," and then sometimes we don't get around to it. And he says, "That's part of my sabotage trait." But the other part is he keeps asking me, "How much money do you make, Steve?" And so he says, "So let's put it out in dollar terms." He says, "If you're making $50,000 a year, that's about $25 an hour. If you looked at the whole thing. If you're making $100,000 a year, that's about $50 an hour." He said, "So look at
right.
your time and how much is it worth?" He said, now, if you could hire somebody for half that amount to get all of that done, you saved yourself $12 an hour. So if I'm making 50 grand and I hire somebody at $13, I save myself $12 an hour over my time. Now, we don't look at it that way, problem, but that way we hire somebody at $13 an hour or whatever they're paying for, virtual assistants,
Yep.
and they do 5, 6, 7 hours worth of work, which frees me up to do what I love to do and am better equipped to do. Right, Laura?
Exactly. And let's face it, most coaches are not $25 an hour. Most coaches I work with are charging $300-400 an hour. So to hire somebody even at $20-35 an hour, it makes sense, you guys. I mean, why waste your time doing it yourself when you can hire somebody for so much less? So, take those tasks that you're doing that don't need to be done at all, get those off your list. Write down a list of things that somebody else could do that you can do, but somebody else might be able to do better and faster. People that are doing these things every day can do it a whole lot faster than you that's struggling on the back end of your WordPress. And then where on that list also write, where is my gaps in my skill and knowledge? Where could I outsource something like to an expert? Maybe it's, Facebook ads. You're going to be able to hire somebody that does Facebook ads. Yes, you're going to pay them, but I guarantee you're going to pay less in those ads because they know how to do it. They know the systems. They know what works. So, before you rush off and go hire a virtual assistant, look at that daily task list again and again and identify really what your need is so that you're absolutely clear. And then this is another thing that I think a lot of people, and I think, Steve, you had this problem, is you have to set specific standards and expectations for your work. And I know most of us don't want to, micromanage, and that's fine, but you do have to give them expectations. They're human. They can't read your mind. If you need something done by Monday, hey, I need this report done and back to me by Monday. Decide what your checks and balances are going to be before you actually hire them. It's going to make it a whole lot easier. One of the things that I personally have done with team members is when I'm doing a task, I'll actually video what I'm doing for that task so I have a duplicatable system for them. So I'll put that task into a folder with video, and they know exactly how to go and put Laura's blog posts. They know exactly what to do for SEO. They know my image standards, and I think that's really important as you're building your business out.
That's a tip that everybody needs to pick up on. I don't care what you're doing. If you video yourself doing the task, I've owned all kinds of businesses, and I'd say, just one came to mind because it was how to properly clean the bar glasses when I owned a bar, right? And you could show them in a minute, but by the same token, if you sat them down and said, "Here's our training. It's going to take you an hour to go through it," boom, they go through all the stuff that they would have to do as a server behind my bar, in front of my bar, right? And they got it through it, and you say, "Now, is this a job you think you can do?" Right? And then they've got a basis foundation. So I mean, all of that stuff would work out. And of course, we didn't think about it, or we didn't know it at the time. And so here, especially if they said, okay, if I recorded my screen and recorded what I was doing and then showed it to them, they'd go, "Oh yeah, I know what you're doing there, and I can get that done for you," right?
Exactly. It's all about expectations. I worked in the bar industry too myself at one time. So, but you were there. So it's different when you're actually in a room with somebody compared to the virtual world we're in now, right?
That's right.
So I think that it's really, yeah, it's even more important. Communication, almost over communication, is more important now in this virtual world, because otherwise we're left reading text messages that, we're like, reading the wrong way when they didn't mean something. We get offended by something somebody texted. And that's not what we want to do. You want to be able to effectively work with a virtual assistant. And I think that videos are a great way. I also like software to keep your projects online, like ClickUp, Asana. Those are great ways that you can create systems, things that are done over and over again, like your podcast here. It's done over and over again. There's systems that can be created for your virtual assistant for you. And I apologize. I'm starting to lose my voice. I had strep throat over the weekend.
I understand that. This morning I sneeze. I normally sneeze. When I sneeze 3 times, sometimes 4. This morning I sneezed 6 times in a row, and the last 2, you're out of breath when you sneeze. And so by the last 2, I was actually hawking up a lung, I think. So this morning I had a really gravelly voice myself. So it's easy to mess up your
Oh,
vocal.
yeah, I wasn't expecting to be that's the sickest I've been in a little while, so, but, there's really 5 steps, that when you do work with a virtual assistant, you wanna be able to explain the task to them. You wanna explain not only the task, but the outcome. So, okay, I want this blog post put on my website, but what do you want that blog post to look like at the end? Or I want this podcast put up on my website, but do you want that podcast transcribed? Do you want a certain audio player? These are all different things that you have to think about in that delegation process. And then what level of support that you need. You need somebody that's going to be available at your beck and call, 24 hours a day. Or do you just need somebody an hour a week? Because those are all things that you have to think about when you're hiring a virtual assistant.
And okay, I'm going to
And
interrupt.
then,
How do they get a hold
no,
of you? How do they like go to your website? Do you have some place you send people that you say, hey, here's where you need to go?
yeah. So if you're interested in getting a virtual assistant and working with one of our team members and having us set you up with a perfect virtual assistant, you can go to Virtual Assistant Smore. It's virtual assistant, and then it's smore.com. There is a form there where you can go ahead and match with your perfect virtual assistant, and then we get a hold of you and set up an appointment from there.
And so what does a virtual assistant cost?
Virtual assistants can cost you anywhere from $15 an hour for one that's very inexperienced, up to $75 an hour. If you're looking at a virtual assistant that's going to be doing more of your digital marketing, you're going to look at right around that $75 an hour mark.
Okay. Yeah, and that's important that when we talk about hiring somebody, you also have to look at their experience. Maybe give them a dry run. I mean, it doesn't hurt to hire somebody for 5 or 10 hours to see if they can do the job for you, and then be honest with them. And that's one of the
Exactly.
giant challenges people face, I think, in all this, Laura, is they're afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. They're afraid to be what we call confrontational, which to me, confrontational means being a good manager. Because I tell my wife all the time, I said, in all of my years of owning businesses, 15, 20 years of owning brick and mortar stores, I think I've only fired 5 people. And that's because I hired the right people and I taught them the right way. But when it was time to let them go, you did the right thing. You said, this is what I'm expecting. This is what you haven't been delivering. So you got to step up your game. And you do that 2 or 3 times. And when they don't do it, you can come back to them. So when it comes time to hiring that virtual assistant, say, hey, I'm going to put you on for 5 hours and see if you can do this job. So the first hour, I'm going to teach you, right? And then the hours 3, 4, and 5 is to see if you can complete the task as I've assigned it. And if after 5 hours, you've only got $75 invested in this person, maybe, and you say, okay, that's not going to work out. It's just not going to work out. So thanks a lot. I sure appreciate your time on this, and we're going to move on. And that's
Yeah,
important that
no
you
problem.
become, yeah, it's important you become the person who takes control of your business and not let somebody else. Because I've met with people who say, man, I just can't bring myself to fire that person. You're like, well, you're paying them and keeping them on, and they're not doing the job.
No.
And they're like, I just avoid that. And step up, folks, step up. So Laura will help you with that too.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in hire slow, fire fast. So make sure you're hiring the right person for your team. But if they're not working out, let them go.
Yeah, and again,
My
if
virtual
you say
assistants
the
are trained, so
yeah, if you say the right things, they will anticipate that the end is coming, and maybe they'll bail first. I've had a lot of people quit on me. Now, maybe it's because they saw the writing on the wall, but that's good because then I don't have to fire them. And it's important
exactly.
that you learn. When I talk, Laura had asked me in the beginning, what I do, and I teach people to be better speakers, better presenters, how to make a lot more money vocally. And people go, well, I don't want to speak for a living. You're missing it. Being able to convey to somebody that they're not doing the right job without hurting their feelings, being able to convey to them without offending them, right, can accomplish so
Mhm.
much. And when we talk about these things, it's a matter of how do you, like, I've got somebody in my life that when I listen to them talk, they're always giggling. So when they're talking to their employees, they're giggling. When they talk to their bosses, they're giggling. And I go, you think you're going to get a promotion? And they went, well, yeah, I'm really good at my job. I went, but it's how people perceive you. See, when I talk about speech and being a great presenter, it's like, hey, you know what? If I don't like your job, and I'm like, hey, you got to start doing a better job because, quite frankly, it's affecting us. People are like, well, that's kind of stupid, but okay,
Yeah,
right? And they aren't taking you seriously. So knowing how to present so that
right.
these people, if you're hiring a virtual assistant, which most of us need at least one, don't be afraid to get a hold of
Or
Laura. So,
two.
Laura, do you have an email or two? Do you have an email,
Yeah,
Laura?
yeah. You can go ahead and email Laura at virtualassistantsmore.com, and I will be
And
happy to
Laura
get you any
is,
information.
yeah, if they're listening on the, because this is a video as well as an audio podcast. So if it's
Sure.
virtual,
It's
Laura,
Laura spelled L,
Laura. Go ahead.
yes, Laura, and it's virtual assistant, and then it's Smore, SMORE.com.
Excellent. I'm always amazed when I have people on my podcast that people will rattle off that stuff and then keep going, and I go, wait, do you know hey, mine, it's Kathy at blah 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 blah. People can spell Kathy with a K, with a, with a
With a Y and
THY,
I.
THIE, THI. I mean, if they don't have your website down, if they don't have the spelling down, they aren't going to find you. And it's really important. So
That's
I
for
talk to
sure.
lots of professionals who and that's why I say speaking is a skill, and you have to know all the innuendos because if you give the incorrect address for them to find you, and you aren't giving the wrong address, people, well, I gave the right address, but spelling it even is vital to them finding you, right? Making sure that everything
For
is so they
sure.
can find you. How many times I used to do a lot of, I was on the radio for 8 months back in Sacramento doing a radio show on
Oh,
money.
wow.
And when the people would come on, for their ads, they would do their 30-second ad and they'd say blah, 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 blah. And I'm listening to it because I wasn't in charge of putting ads on the radio, right? And I would hear them and they would say, okay, so if you want that special, $10,000 deal, give us a ring. And the commercial ended. Well, I tell them all the time, I'd
Oh,
call those people up sometimes. Well, I'd go, okay, you didn't catch my attention until you said there's a $10,000 opportunity, and then you ended it. And they said, well, I talked about it in the
and they
beginning.
didn't
I
get the
go,
phone number, dude?
see, well, and they did in the beginning. So it's like, hey, if you want to call Steve, it's 813-906-9197. Now, if you want that $10,000, give me a ring. Well, you didn't catch my attention until you said $10,000, right? So the phone number
No.
came before the ad. And if you listen, if you're on the radio, if you listen to so many times that happens where they catch your attention and you look up and go, wait, what? And it's too late. And that's what so many of us do, even on podcasts. You got to be specific. You got to be intentional for how you want people to perceive you. And it's vital. When I talk about, hey, I help you make money by speaking, people think, oh, I don't want to be a professional speaker. You missed it, right? We help you because we teach you how to communicate more effectively so that you get more opportunities. And so when we talk about Laura having virtual assistants, one of the things that you have to know is you have to know how to communicate with your virtual assistant. But if you
For
go to
sure.
Laura's website, which again is virtualassistantsmore.com, and start snooping around as to fill out the form. What kind of VA are you looking for? Because most of us go, I remember 2 years ago, I was like, I know I need help. I just don't even know what I need help with. You run across that, Laura?
All the time. And I say, take a pencil, paper, write down that list of what you're doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis for your business. And I guarantee there's things on that list that you don't like. And you can delegate those things, delegate them to somebody that's going to enjoy doing them more. Or even if they don't enjoy doing them more, they're going to do a better job than you. And you can spend the time doing the things you like, doing these podcasts, teaching people.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I said, I'm looking for the virtual assistant who's my partner. And I say partner because I want you to do everything and just hire me out to speak. I mean, I speak for $10,000 a pop. And, if you're doing 3 of those a month, you're doing okay. And I could afford to pay my partner half of that, to get out. And
Right,
we're all making, how'd you like
exactly.
to make $15,000 a month for doing a job, right? And you say, well,
Right.
that'd be pretty good money, Steve. Well, your job is to do all the shit do all the stuff I don't like. And
Yeah,
so it's really important
exactly.
that when we talk about that stuff, that you write down, because I, again, Laura, for years, I wrote to, I would see them on LinkedIn or something. I would see them on Facebook and they'd say, I'm a virtual assistant. And I'd write to them and I'd go, okay, explain to me how you could help
What is it?
me. And then they would put
Yeah.
down like 30 things that they do, right? And I went, well, okay. But what they didn't do was pick up the phone and call me and say, what are you having a problem with, Steve? Help me out by telling me what
Yeah.
your greatest challenges are. And so when somebody finally did that, they said, hey, Steve, are you looking to do this? I went, I would love for somebody to do that. They went, let's talk. And that's when I hired the other virtual assistant, right? But that's what we need to do is we have to, the virtual assistants have to do more work than just saying, hey, I'm a virtual assistant. They have to say, Steve, how
Oh,
can
for
I help
sure.
you?
Because yeah, and I think one thing that most people don't realize is virtual assistant is really an industry. Like, healthcare it is an industry. And I think a lot of people don't think about it this way. But healthcare is an industry. In healthcare, you have a foot doctor, you have a dentist. Which one are you going to go to for a toothache, right?
You have
Well, with
nurses,
a
you have
virtual
respiratory
assistant, you have
therapists. Yeah.
exactly. There's a whole variety of people in that industry with different skill sets. They don't all have the same skill sets, and that's okay. And it's the same thing with the virtual assistant industry. The word virtual assistant doesn't mean they're just going to go get your cup of coffee, Steve. you know, but
I'm
I'm
almost
sorry.
out.
I know. I need to fill mine up too. But it does mean that it's an industry. So that means there's a variety of different skill sets, a variety of different fees. Having somebody handle your email management and your calendar is huge. I don't know if you're like me, but I get hundreds of emails every day. So if they can just give me the
Hundreds.
top 10 that I have to deal with, oh my goodness, my life is so much easier.
But now,
So,
how do you
but
know
that's
which
one
10?
skill set.
Wait, how do you know which 10 you want? Because that's what somebody said to me. They went, Steve, you got to do it. I went, I get 400 a day. Now I've got them split into 3 categories, but it's still, when you're getting 400 a day, you're like, well, this one could be important today. How do you know which ones are the most important when you're hiring a virtual
because
assistant?
I give because I give them a list of what I want to be able to personally respond to. Other things they can respond to. If they know it's somebody that's reaching out to me for a consultation, they know, hey, here's the schedule link. They can handle those emails. I do have a folder, which I call the swipe folder, that I have where I put all my emails in that I, might want to refer to for marketing, but they know to put those in that swipe folder so that I don't have to deal with those. And some days I might have only 2 or 3 emails that I have to deal with because they know how to handle all the customer service stuff.
Well,
And
that'd
that's
be
huge.
nice. That's huge.
There is
Huge.
it's huge. There is so much time that we spend in email. So that's just one end. That's a lower end virtual assistant that's going to do a job like that. Then you might have a virtual assistant that's designing all your social media posts, scheduling all your social media. So then you're going up a little level because it's a little bit more skill set. And then you might have one that's doing all your digital marketing, advertising, building your funnels out, building the email funnels that go with that. So that's going to be
Wait,
a higher skill
there's
set that
virtual
goes with that.
assistants who will build out your funnels?
Oh, for sure, honey. That's definitely in the
Oh,
virtual
see,
assistant
now
industry. That was actually my specialty.
if you're talking to my speakers, my authors, when we talk about building a funnel, most of us spend hours trying to figure out how to put a funnel together, how to do this. So you can hire a virtual assistant to help you build out your funnels. Think how your marketing could change. What if you only brought in 2 new clients a month? If you're a speaker, right? And you bring in 2 new speaking jobs. Let's say you're only getting paid $2,500. You're on the low end of the speaker thing. That's $5,000. How much is that virtual assistant worth to you if you can bring in $5,000 more dollars a month?
And that's huge. And there's so many things that can be done with funnel. Funnels are actually that was what my specialty had been for the last 10 years because I was able to help build those 6 and 7 figure launch strategies for a lot of coaches and consultants and speakers. So, but there's all sorts of different funnels and automations that your virtual assistant can help you set up. If you have automations, you're not responding to all those emails because it's automated. And there's a lot of different things that your virtual assistants can have. I love the word automation.
Yeah.
I love the word
But
automation.
I don't
So
think
really,
I don't think most of us really think about somebody being able to help us do that. I mean, I'm just getting ready to hire somebody who will help me just clean up my computer, right? So this person
mhm,
is going to come over to my office. They're going to be a physical person because I go, you know what? I lose files. It's like I save this and I go, I don't know where to look. There's so many files down the side of my computer. I'm lost. My
oh boy.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's just one of those deals where my wife keeps going, because I'll call her in and I'll go, "Okay, I just saved this. Where did it go?" And she said, "Well, you gotta start saving them in the same place." I went, "I don't know how to do that." So I just hiring a
Oh
guy to
yeah.
come over and spend a couple hours with me to do that. But those are the things that, boy, will change your life, and that's what most of
Oh,
us,
and you could
we
hire a virtual
hesitate.
assistant to do something like that as well.
See?
I mean, we could do things like that. Creating systems for file storage, that's huge, you know. Is- I have billions of files. I've worked online for 20 years, you guys. 20 years.
So
You know, I
you can
have
hire
billions.
a virtual assistant to, do my file system. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, there's systems that they can do, and they can actually access your computer from your home or
Yeah,
from their home.
that remote stuff. Yeah, I think that's
Yep,
so cool.
yep,
When somebody says, "Can I
yep.
get into your computer?" and then they send you this link and you're like, "That's so
Oh,
cool."
that's scary.
Well, we
I
already
think
know
it's scary that they
Facebook
can
and
access everything,
Microsoft
but
are doing
yeah.
that. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, definitely you can hire virtual assistants to do things like that. And even with your email, I am a huge supporter. I'm a big Gmail person. I'm a big use Gmail folders, flagging, tags, labels, all of that type of good stuff. Virtual assistants are great at setting that type of system up for you so that you have know where you can find your information.
Cool. That is so cool. So, and here's the a nice thing. If you're like me, if you guys are sitting out there listening to this podcast, and you're like me, and you say, "Well, what did she just say about Gmail, about flagging, about tagging, about whatever else she said?" You probably should get on the virtualassistantsmore.com and fill out the form. Have somebody help you for a couple hours on just teaching you about your own Gmail. Because you know what? I know nothing about my own Gmail. And even like somebody says, "Well, if you want to look up a contact, how do you do that on Gmail?" I go, I have no idea. I type their name
Oh,
into the I type their name into the thing where I'm going to send them an email, then I know that I've got them in there. But when they say, "Well, why don't you just access your Gmail, contact list?" I go, I don't know how to do that. So those are the things that
oh,
you can hire. Yeah, I'm
You
going to
can
be on your
definitely,
form
you can
soon.
definitely, you probably can Google that, but you could definitely hire somebody. And some people do better with a one-on-one consultation where they're sitting down and somebody just shows them
Yeah,
how to do these certain things, or even help them set that up while you're on a Zoom call with them. You can set it up together to
yeah.
make sure that you have a system that's effective for you,
How much help do
for
you
sure.
really need is the question. So when you're listening to this podcast, when you're tuned in to Speaker Talks, I want you to ask yourself, how much more effective could you be if you had some of these things under control? Just bam. How much more would it help you? And that's what I'm telling you. You need to get a hold of Laura. You can write to her at laura@virtualassistantsmore.com. You can go to her website, which is virtualassistantsmore.com, and fill in the form. She'll be happy to chat with you. She'll be happy to hook you up with the right assistant. That's what she does for a living, right, Laura?
Right. And we can figure out exactly how many hours you need. Don't be scared that you have to go and invest $1,000 or $5,000 right away. You can start small. Start small. Start with a virtual assistant 1 or 2 hours a week. And then as your business grows and as they help you grow those profits, then reinvest those profits back into your VA so that you can grow your business to the next level.
See, really good point. Really good point. How much will it change your business if some of that is taken off of your hands? Laura, that probably wraps up our time today. I sure appreciate you being on. Laura and I had a couple snags when we were first getting together to try and put this whole podcast thing together, but we did it today, and that's what counts, right, Laura?
Awesome. Yes, for sure. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure. Any last words that you want people to know before they get on your virtualassistantsmore.com?
Don't be afraid to hire out. My form is a little bit long. Don't let it be intimidating to you, but it's just so that we can find the perfect match for your virtual assistant. And so you can get the support you need. But don't be afraid to hire out. And even if you are just starting your business, it's okay to hire a virtual assistant. You don't have to do it all yourself.
I think what's important, she said hire. You and I, when we think hire, we think, oh, money. I don't have any money, right? What do I do? I don't have any money. She wants me to hire someone. That's just a word. That's a term. What she's saying is get a little help now. A
Invest.
little help now will help you get a little more help tomorrow. A little more help goes into this until you've got 1, 2, maybe 4 virtual assistants who are almost running your business for you. And then all you have to do is speak or be the author or be the manager, be the
Exactly.
supervisor. whatever you need to do. If you've got the right help, that's part of your team. So, Laura, thanks a lot for being on. I sure appreciate it. If
Thank
there's
you so
anything you
much.
folks need, yeah, my pleasure. If there's anything you need, we already gave you Laura's information. Mine is steve@stevesapato.com. You can see above my head, we've got the best speaker in Tampa competition coming up June 10th. If you'd like to be part of that speaker competition, reach out to me, steve@stevesapato.com, and we'll talk about what it takes for you to become the best speaker in Tampa. So that speaking lessons, that and business training, obviously we're available for. And I want to impress upon you, if you listen to this and you work at a company and you have boring managers, boring speakers, visit my website, stopboringspeakers.com. Let's get that under control. Do away with those people, right? Maybe they just need a good virtual assistant so they can get speaker training from you know who. Hey, it's been a
Exactly.
pleasure today.
That frees up their time.
That's right. I hope you guys are all having a fabulous day. And if there's anything we can do for you, reach out. God bless.
Bye-bye.